Hey, good morning everybody and welcome onto this morning's online training session. Could I please ask you just to ensure that you can actually hear my voice and see my screen? If you wouldn't mind just raising your little hand there or just type into the chat box, yes, you're fine that you can hear my voice and you can see my screen. That'll be great if you do that. Okay, thanks very much, I can see. Okay, so there's a few names I recognize this morning and some I don't. So Tim, hey, welcome on this morning. Ravi, I can see that you're on as well this morning. That's great to see you again. Gerard, hey, fantastic. And Andy, thank you very much for raising your hand there as well. So before we get started, just want to quickly ask you, just go ahead, type into the chat box there because you will see this morning it's my style. It's quite an interactive training session. Could I ask you just go ahead, just try out your little control panel there into the chat box. Just type in for me what the weather is like where you are this morning. Now, I'm guessing all of us are in the UK, so it's probably fairly crummy weather. But hey, if you look out the outside, what's it like? Just go ahead and type that in there. Let's just see that the control panel works properly. Raining, says Ravi. Don't ask, says Rosie. Cold. Bright but wet underfoot, Andy. Paul says cloud and drizzle. Liam says it's a beautiful day. Liam, where are you? And Chris says miserable. Well, I must say that this morning I'm actually in southern Spain, but even here it is cloudy, not freezing cold, but cloudy, and I think the storms from the UK have definitely blown over. So yeah, I think it's a cloudy world we're in at the moment. But hey, okay, fantastic. So this morning's training session. Well, I suppose introductions first. For those of you who don't know yet, hi everybody. My name is Rudy Janssen. I'm the head coach at ACOA, and we run a black belt coaching program exclusively for accountants who are determined to make a change in their practices and in their lives. And I'm absolutely dead serious when I say that. So I'm really excited about today's session. We're going to go and take a deep dive into how you get yourself an A-plus team, how you calculate the right value price, and how you go about wowing your clients in the first 90 days, which will make such a massive impact. You will not believe it. Okay, so let me just make sure I've got the right screens on here. There we go. Okay, so before we get started this morning, what I call the 3 gets. Now, I know some of you have seen this presentation before, so the intro is always pretty much the same because we need to get the foundations right. So let me just get on the screen there. Good. First get, make sure you've got the tools you need. So this morning, I'm hoping that you're going to make lots of notes. So make sure that you've got something to write on, something to write with. Also that you have something to drink so that you can sustain yourself as we go through this. Second get there is get rid of anything that might distract you. So my request is that for the next, you know what, this is probably going to be going for about 90 minutes. There's a lot I'm going to share with you. It's pretty high impact. Yes, around 90 minutes, and I hope that all of you can make it because there's a lot here. But in that time, you know what, do yourself a favor. Switch your mobile phone off. If you've got a PA, ask that person to hold your calls. In other words, give yourself the same gift you gift your clients every week. Some uninterrupted time focused on you and your practice instead of the world and its needs. And then our third get here is get yourself ready. So here's the thing. I know that the information I have for you could be a pivot point for you. You know, it could dramatically change your practice. And the only thing that'll stop that today is how you show up. You know, I got up early this morning, went for a walk, I've got a strong coffee next to me and some water, and I really want to give you my A game. And I guarantee that if you bring your A game to this morning, you will get the most out of this today as well. So let me ask you, one question. And again, it's just to have the interactiveness, get into the control panel and type up there. But if there was one feeling or emotion that you could bring to the next hour or 90 minutes, what would that one emotion be that would give you the most joy, fire in your belly, value out of this time together? So what's the one feeling that you might want to bring to this? So I'd love to know. So go ahead and type that into the chat box as well. It could be maybe curiosity, passion, intensity, intrigue. You know, what's your word? I'd love to know. So just go ahead and type that into the chat box as well. Let me get this open here again. Okay, fantastic. And he says enthusiasm. Hey Neville, good morning. Welcome to you as well. Energy, yeah, excellent. John says curiosity. Excellent. Good stuff. Ravi says keen. Fantastic, Ravi. And Ravi, I promise you this morning is going to make a big difference for you. Chris, anticipation. Okay, fantastic. There's a few there. Thanks very much. Liam says ready for action. Liam, that's a very good one. And it's just my initial thought there was ready for action. This morning, I really want you to be ready to take in lots of knowledge, because the action, if you design it step by step after you have this knowledge, you can make a big, massive difference to your practice. Okay, fantastic. So our journey this morning. Today's training, let's take a quick overview of what we're going to do together and how the session is going to work. So firstly, a bit about my style. You know, I'm originally from South Africa, so I still have a strong South African accent, which I'm sure I'm never going to lose. I talk really fast, so the cure for that is that you're going to have to listen really fast this morning. And I'm also going to give you the straight truth. You know, I've been working exclusively with accountants, accountancy practices for many years now. And I'm going to give you what works and what doesn't work. And just the straight facts. I'm not going to sugarcoat this stuff. I'll tell you what I've seen about how to grow your practice and how to leverage your time. So this morning we are going to have a good time. I definitely want this to be interactive, not because I think it's fun, but because I have got a lot of stuff planned. And I do want to find out where you are at and what you need right now. And as we go along, if you're busy typing that into the chat box and interact with me, then I know exactly what you need. And I won't just give you the generic presentation. So as we go through this, feel free to type in your comments, questions, go ahead and get involved in it. So let's make this interactive, because it's going to help both of us and it's a lot more fun. You know, it's a bit strange for me sitting at my side speaking to my laptop, and you know, it's a bit strange for you on your side staring at your computer screen, listening to a voice. So if we could make this conversation backwards and forwards, you and I think that'll be really much more fun and help us both be much more engaged and get a much better outcome from this morning's online training. So let's get on to the content then. So as far as the content is concerned, really simple. I'm going to show you why you are working on a broken model and why this model is costing you thousands in profits and hours in time every year. Then we're going to look at the 6-step value pricing calculator that turned a 10,000 euro job into a 25,000 euro tax job for a client of mine pretty recently. Then we're going to take a look at the exact formula for finding and developing an A+ team for your practice, because as a business owner, you are either looking forwards, building your business, or you are looking backwards at your team and fixing their problems, but you can't be doing both at the same time, which is why it's absolutely key to have an A+ team behind you. And then we can look at a 90-day onboarding game plan that will wow new clients and generate word-of-mouth referrals. And if I to summarize our goal for today, then it is how to get that A+ team, calculate the right value price, and wow your clients in the first 90 days. So I'm going to give you everything I've got in the time we've got this morning, and then at the end I'm going to show you a system where you can take all the material we cover and install it into your practice so you get the results even faster. So I just want to check, does that sound okay? Are we in the right room? Are we having the right conversation? So do me a favor, please, just get in your chat box. Just type in there, sounds good or good to go, and that'll let me know that you're ready for us to carry on. Okay, great, fantastic, excellent, thanks very much. Fine by me, good to go, let's go up for it. Okay, fantastic, excellent, let's go then. So go ahead into your chat box in, please, and type in there for me. What is the number one outcome that you want from today's webinar? Because you're a busy person, for you to take time out of your diary, what is the number one thing you want from today's webinar? So go ahead and type that in there for us. Okay, focus. Ravi says focus. Ravi, focus. This will give you enthusiasm. It'll excite you. Focus is really something I do in my coaching program where we really keep you there. But I promise you, you will get some clarity and focus today. Vera says specific tools to take away. Vera, you will absolutely get that. And if we don't give you specific ones that are right for you, then type in or at the end of the Q&A, remind me which ones you specifically want. Rosie, help with pricing value. We'll definitely touch on that, Rosie. Andy says more insight into value pricing. I will definitely give you that as well, Andy. Chris says how to attract new clients and keep them. We'll touch on that. Neville, actionable steps to move my practice forward. You will definitely get that. Liam, actionable ideas. Good. Paul, a system that produces results. Paul, I'm going to share something with you and with all of you on this call this morning. Now, my marketing manager has said to me, do not say a word, but I just can't help myself. So I'm going to do this. I've just written and released a book, and in it, I literally step by step as a process, and it's the exact same process that I use with my clients. It is for sale on Amazon now. It's called The Highly Profitable Accountant. And basically, I'm telling a story of a friend of mine who is an accountant struggling in his practice, and then his journey, how he puts all the systems in step by step, and ultimately gets into this place where he spends most of his time, or a fair amount of his time, on his yachts in the Mediterranean with his family. So the book is available on Amazon, on Kindle as well. If you get that, you will literally have a step-by-step process in there. And it's the exact same process that I use with all my clients. So The Highly Profitable Accountant, or you can just search on my name as well, you'll find it there. And hey, I'm always looking, at this stage of the game, looking for positive reviews. So if you read it there and you think it's worth a positive review or even a 5-star, fantastic, it'll be much appreciated. Okay, so that's that bit there. David says getting a great price for a great service. Absolutely. Okay, good, fantastic. Yes, I think we are in the right room here. So, next question. What's the biggest problem you have in your practice right now? You know, to be honest, if, you know, we've only been friends for, what, less than 10 minutes here, and if we've just met face-to-face, there's no way I'd ask you this up front, but I really need to know where you're at so I can help you. What is the biggest problem you have right now in your practice? So go ahead and type that in there for us. Freeing up my time. Yeah, good. Raising my rates. Yeah, there's a whole getting the pricing right. Yeah. So there's a whole lot coming in there. Identifying growth services, time pricing team. An aging client base which needs to be replaced. Okay, good. Thanks for that. Andy, fantastic. Just not at our maximum. And it's interesting, I've got a client in London, he's a sole proprietor with 18 staff, turning over £2 million a year in his practice. So like you, he doesn't have any real problems, but he just wants to take it to a whole next level, and he's in that process at the moment. And for him, it was one about having predictable growth. So yeah, totally get where you're at. Fantastic. Okay, so thanks for sharing that with me. Gives me much more insight as well. So this presentation this morning, I built for my clients. It must have been about 2 years ago, a client of mine came to me and said, Rudy, I want to build my practice as a machine that makes money, and then I want to extract myself. What's the fastest way to get there? And so he asked me this great question, but the problem with the question is you can't answer a deep question like that in 30 seconds. So I built this presentation to give him and everyone else the answers. Now, we're not going to cover everything, and what you're going to see today, this presentation is slightly different to what he had, but we're going to cover enough for you to know what the answers are. Next slide then. So we are going to be moving really fast, and looking at the clock, I'm going to have to speak a little bit less and pick up the pace in any case. But if it is helpful to you at the end, I'd be happy to give you a recording of this presentation. So if it comes out, I'd be happy to give that to you. Would that be helpful? So just type in a yes if that's something that you would want. Okay, great. And then at the end, we'll get into Q&A. So please just remind me to give the recording to you, and I'll get that to you as soon as possible. Good. Fantastic. Okay. And this is safe scribbling everything down. Absolutely. Good. So, as accountants, we are a pretty intelligent bunch on the whole. And I qualified as a chartered accountant many years ago as well, so I know the journey, or part of the journey, that you're on as well. We've invested years into studying, and on top of that, we are prepared to work really hard. We really do put in the blood, the sweat, the tears. And yet, for most of us, we're on this treadmill. We're constantly working hard, we're constantly fighting fires, and this entire concept of freedom, building a business that gives me money and my life back. There's whole Michael Gerber concept as well. It's a bit of a foreign concept for most of us. We understand the theory, but my goodness, in reality, we are a million miles from it for most of us. But that is exactly what I help my clients with. To recognize that you're actually on a treadmill for most of us, and that there is absolutely a way to get off that treadmill and ultimately achieve freedom. If you are a partner in a practice, you have your own practice, you've got the material there. You've just got to change it around so that it can give you that freedom. So you see, generally speaking, we're either time poor and, or quite frankly, money poor. So considering what we put in as opposed to what we get out, something is not adding up there. So why do you think so many partners or owners of accountancy practices are struggling so much? So go ahead and type in there for us. What do you think the reason is that so many partners or practice owners are struggling so much? Considering we're a pretty intelligent bunch and we're prepared to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. Go ahead, type in your chat box, why are we struggling so much? Interesting one. The first two answers coming through here from Ravi and Chris is on pricing. So low pricing, pressure on fees. I guess the simple question is, well, why don't you just raise your prices? And you go, well, I don't know how to. Not yet. Okay. And it says lack of ability, propensity to delegate. Andy, that is one of the easiest things to do in life when you know how to do it. Neville, doing lower value work or not getting pricing right, absence of or poor systems. Yeah, and it's interesting, Neville, you know, one of the things that we've created with our clients is it's a tool we call the pricing maximizer. I'm not going to go into it today because we're working with value pricing, but the pricing maximizer, it's a spreadsheet, and down the one side it lists, you know, we've gone and interviewed all our clients and we said, what are the services or products that you sell? So we've got a whole listing of all these services. And then there are 5 columns. The first column is empty. Column 2, 3, and 4 have their prices in. So that the middle column of those 3 has the average price that these people charge. The first of those 3 columns has the minimum price that any of them charge. And the third column has the maximum price that any of them charge for that service. And the maximum tend to be London prices. So we give this spreadsheet to our clients and say, okay, here from, you know, we've reviewed or we've looked at all our clients. Here's all the services they sell. Here is minimum, average, and maximum. In the very first empty column, go and fill in your current prices. And for most people, that's a shock because a lot of the services there, either they don't charge for or they realize, wow, you know, we're at the bottom end here. And then the second step is, okay, now go and put your revised prices. So it gives you kind of a guide benchmark to know where your pricing is sitting at. But hey, I'm digressing again. We're technicians rather than entrepreneurs. Yep, Liam, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And therefore, we've got to teach you to become entrepreneurs or move away from technicians. Absolutely. Okay, some great answers there. So let me tell you my theory about life here. And I just need to move this one little box. Okay, good. So we have here these 4 quadrants: E, SE, BO, and I. So E stands for employee or self-employed. Sorry, I apologize. Employee is what E stands for. Employee or employed. SE stands for self-employed. Then we make the jump to BO, which is business owner, and ultimately the I is investor. Now, you see what happens here is that, for me, this is a journey through life. And really, there should be a small S at the very top of the E, which is school. So we all go to school, and then at some point we become employed, you know, an employee. Now, as an employee, I've got my hands in front of my body because somebody's teaching me to do something. So I'm typing on my keyboard, I'm a bookkeeper, I'm fixing pipes, I'm a plumber, whatever, my hands are in front of my body. Then I make this big jump to self-employed. Now, either I start my own practice or I join a partnership, but I'm self-employed. The big similarity between E and SE is that I've got my hands in front of my body. So even though I have my own practice, if I'm in the SE quadrant, I'm the person doing it. You know, I'm out there, I'm busy fighting fires, I'm whatever it is, my hands are in front of my body. The next big jump, where most of my clients are at, is this jump from self-employed to business owner. Now, in that jump, what we do there is we take your hands from in front of your body and we tie them behind your back with you kicking and screaming, and we say, okay, now run this practice of yours the same or better than before with your hands tied behind your back. And this is a very different skill set. And this is not the stuff that you learned at university, I promise you. So at the BO quadrant, business owner quadrant, there's 2 things that you have to absolutely learn and master and get it right. The one is team. How do I get an A+ team behind me? And the other bit is systems. You know, the systems, great systems that my team can rely on. Because when I can put a tick next to both of those, that is when I've built this cash machine, if you want to call it like that, that can work pretty much without me. And then I can make that final jump into the investor quadrant. That's a fantastic place to be in. You know, clients of mine who've made that jump, oh, it's just amazing. Because there, you've built a cash machine, but not only that, you now have freedom of money, you have freedom of time, and you have mastered how to ride the bicycle, which means that in your head you've got the knowledge base, and whether you start other businesses or acquire other businesses and fairly fast turn them around, majority of my clients who jump into the investor quadrant become what I call monopoly players because they can. What an awesome place to be in. So, type in quickly for me, where are you spending currently most of your time? In which quadrants are you spending most of your time in at the moment? Now, I know for most of you, you're probably going to be somewhere between SE and BO, but if you're more towards the SE side, then type in SE. If you're more towards the BO side, then type BO. Absolutely. SE, 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 SE. And that is, even the client who has gone to the BO quadrant, I'm sorry, the client in London of mine who's turning over his £2 million with a team of 18, he's almost on the BO jumping the I, probably another 3-4 months, but it does take a while. Okay, fantastic. I can see that a few of you are almost there already, so fantastic. Excellent. What a fantastic place to be in. Okay, good. So next question then. Why is it so hard to make the shift from one quadrant to the next? A lot of people say, well, it's all about mindset. You just need to think more positively. And yes, that is part of the answer, sure, but that's definitely not the whole answer. So let me be really clear here. Mindset is not the problem. Because for me, if you have your own practice and you are feeling stuck in whatever way that might be for you, mindset is not a problem, and a positive attitude is not going to fix it. If you're feeling stuck and frustrated in your practice right now, stop beating yourself up because it's not you. It's not your fault. Let me explain it this way. If I get into my car and it's nighttime, the steering wheel is broken, the brakes are not working, the lights are not working, and I decide, you know what, I'm actually going to drive this car down the road, I'm going to hate that experience. And I'd rather want to jump out that car and run away. And that is because the car I'm driving is broken. It's pretty simple and straightforward. But the same is true with your practice. If the model that you're driving in your business is, I'll call it broken, then things just aren't going to work. It's not mindset, it is model. The model that your practice is built on. So for me, model beats mindset every single time. And also, if someone has the wrong model and you get them revved up, you know what happens? They fail even faster. So, a fact, I believe that you've been set up to fail. Now, there's a statement for you. Now, if you're frustrated with where you're at, you're working long hours, maybe your cash flow is tight, maybe your profits aren't where you need them to be, you can't find the right team or the right clients, no one's deliberately trying to ruin our lives as practice owners. The fact is that the system you either bought into or the training you've had from when you were very young in this industry and that you brought with you when you set up your own practice and you saw what everybody else was doing, that has flaws in it. And those flaws limit you in 3 major areas. So it limits your team, it limits your growth, and it limits what I'll call your systems. And those 3 things ultimately dramatically limits the amount of money and time that you take from the practice. And it stops you from making that jump across the BO and finally into the investor quadrant until you get these things right. So let me share with you 3 signs of a broken model. And also I'm going to ask you to just write this down because I'm going to ask you a question after I show you the 3 models. So it would be useful if you've got that down there. Okay, 3 signs of a broken model. We are hoping for growth. So in other words, there's no real growth strategy. We don't have a written down tactical marketing plan that we're executing against. So yes, we get referrals and we do a bit of this and a bit of that, but a real written down tactical marketing plan in place for growth? Maybe not. Second sign of broken model, your team are over-reliant on you or the leadership team. In other words, they need you there all the time and you need them. And the third sign of a broken model is what I call your systems are sweaty. Now, obviously, you've gotten your practice to where it is because you've got systems in place, without a doubt. But things aren't properly systemized throughout, which means that everyone's working way too hard to get the jobs done. And what this usually means is that ultimately things fall back onto your shoulders or the leadership team to get it sorted. And the results of all of this is that you're seriously limiting your profit and massively increasing the time you spend in your business. So if you're hoping for growth and your team are over-reliant, you are stuck. So in other words, you're not moving anywhere and there's nobody to help you. If your team are over-reliant and your systems are sweaty, then you are drowning. So you've got all this pressure on top of you and no way out. And then if the systems are sweaty and you're hoping for growth, then you are grafting. In other words, working hard with a sweat and really moving nowhere. So which of those three is costing you most and why? So for those of you who didn't write this down, I'll go back one screen. Just go ahead and type into the chat box there, which one or more than one of those three is causing you the most grief? Because this is where it lies. People who have ticked those three corners can get themselves to freedom. So go ahead, type in there which one of those three corners is causing you the most grief. Okay, and he says no real growth strategy. Ravi, team over-reliant. Chris, hoping for growth. Desmond, hey Desmond, welcome on this call this morning as well. Team over-reliant. Neville, systems and team. Yep, absolutely. Liam, hoping for growth. Yeah, lots of ones coming in here. David, hoping for growth. Yeah, Liam, again, I know that you're busy with this jump. Well, you're in the business owner quadrant, which tells me that you've got a team, you've got systems there. But the last corner we really want to master is that hoping for growth one. And it's fairly simple to do once I know what I'm doing. Okay, David, thanks very much for growth as well. Okay. So those are the three things limiting you. So if you could flip those three corners from hoping for growth to something else, dependent team to something else, from sweat systems to something else, then the lid comes off and you can make more money and win back more time for you and your practice and really get yourself off this treadmill of, I'm constantly got to go to work, I've got to get up every day and do what I'm doing, truly out of choice or because it's a bit of I have to. For me, it's about building freedom. But hey, maybe that's just me. So let's take a look at these three shifts. Shift one is from hoping for growth to predictable growth. Shift number two is from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. And shift number three is from sweat systems to scalable systems. So let's talk about this first shift here. Hoping for growth to predictable growth. And more specifically, we're going to be looking at value pricing and how you can calculate the right value price. So over the last few years, something that I've really focused on with and for my clients is I'm a very firm believer in the 80-20 rule. There's 100 things out there. Find 20 things that will make the most impact and pretty much ignore the other 80% because the 20% is going to do it for you. And then we take that a step further and we say, okay, we've identified the 20%, but in that 20%, there's got to be another 80-20. And what I've done with this process that I get my clients to follow is that I've done, for you to build your practice, there's so many things you need to be doing, whether it be on this predictable growth, whichever one of these corners. And we've 80-20'd and 80-20'd again to come up with, here are the diamonds that you need to implement. Get this right, and the rest will take care of itself. So what we've got is not a lot of stuff, but it's key things that you implement this, it makes all the difference. So under predictable growth, there are 4 keys. So key 1 is getting the pricing right. So how do you boost the margins, calculate the value, maximize prices? I've already mentioned about the pricing maximizer we use. Key number 2 is under marketing. So generate leads, nurture prospects, and referrals and introducers. Oops. Key number 3 is on sales. Now, how do we disqualify the bad or the weak prospects? How do we sell the value, and how do we increase the conversions? And key number 4 under marketing, how do we accelerate the growth, diversify our offering, and amplify our returns? And this morning we're going to look at one element under key 1 there, which is all about calculating the value price under the pricing section. So the question is, I want to start by defining what I mean by the right price. Right doesn't mean that there's one correct answer. Because quite honestly, if I gave a test job to 10 different accountants, I'm pretty sure that each one could come back with the right price, and yet could be vastly different. So I think that the right price is a price that is one of 3 things here. Number 1, reflective of the input you and your team need to put in. Number 2, it takes into account the overall value you'll be providing to the client. And number 3, it's a figure that makes sense financially for both you and them. So it is really, what is the perception of the client, and are they happy with it? So back to my story then. So earlier this month, was it last month, I was speaking with one of my black belt clients, a guy called Colin. Now Colin is one of 2 partners at a practice in Waterford, so Southern Ireland. And he had just been asked to quote for a relatively large piece of tax work, it was a tax job for a prospective client, and he was having some trouble figuring out the right price to quote. And as you're saying to me, I keep trying different calculations, and I've got different approaches to pricing, but every time I arrive at different figures, and I don't really know what I'm doing here. So all I want is a price that makes the job profitable enough for us, but at the same time will be accepted by the prospective client and not seem too high. So at the end of the day, Colin came up with a price of 10,000 euros for this job. And this was fine, but I had a different thought on the whole thing, because I knew that due to the nature of the work, Colin could quote much more and still stand a chance of winning. So I took him through a 6-step process to figure out the right value price. So can we just see quickly in the chat box again, so who currently has a standardized process for calculating value pricing? By standardized, I mean it's something that you could share with your team and everybody can follow that system or standard. So if you've got that, then go in there, say yes or maybe, no, whatever it might be. Okay, good. Got a few yeses and a few nos. Okay, so there's a bit of a mix there. Good stuff. Okay. So let me get into the next slide here. So if you don't have a standardized process, okay, and like Ravi says, got a pricing tool, but don't always use it. Okay, fantastic. So if you don't have a standardized process or calculate value pricing, then you're definitely not maximizing your pricing potential. You are, without a doubt, leaving money on the table every time you agree a quote with the prospective client. And this means that you're left stressed and frustrated when your sales and your profits aren't where you'd want or expect them to be. But on the other hand, if we did have a systemized process for calculating value pricing, then you would be maximizing your pricing potential. You're increasing the profitability of your practice by quite a bit. And, you know, it's just, again, a sideline, but another client of mine in, well, Northern Ireland, in this past year, I think they increased, now sure, they are a multiple partner practice, but I think they increased their bottom line by something like £600,000 just because they worked in their pricing on this one element. So again, what this means is that you're motivated and empowered because your practice is moving in the right direction, as those guys are, because what a great feeling. So what could a standardized value pricing calculator do for your practice? So if you haven't got one in yet, go ahead, type in the chat box there. If you had a standardized value pricing calculator in place, what might it do for your practice? I'd love to know. Release me from pricing considerations. Absolutely, and again, it's another one step closer to getting off the treadmill and freedom. Neville, give clear insights into where we are leaving money on the table. Absolutely. Help all departments consider pricing consistently. Rosie, consistent pricing. Yep, consistency. Okay, fantastic. Okay, next slide. So here is a 6-step value pricing calculator. And again, you know, being an online training like this, we're going high level. So bear with me. If you've got specific questions, ask it as we go along, or keep it for the Q&A at the end, or organize a call with me and I'll answer yours specifically in a call like that. So step number 1. Now, again, in our system, I give my clients a sheet they fill in, but basically we're looking for a broad project description, you know, a summary. What is this project? So make these notes, because without doubt you could go and design your own sheet like this. So what is this project all about? Very important we know that. Step number 2, what are the client objectives? Why do they need it? You know, is it to avoid paying a large tax bill? Is it to grow their business internationally? Whatever it might be. Be clear on exactly what their why is and dig deep. Now, I've got a whole training section, and I think on one of my video blogs or one of my blogs on my site, I get into this, how you do the why. But the client objective, so let's say, for example, a client comes to you and says, I need a cash flow forecast. And you want to do a value pricing on that. You want to ask, so Mr. Client, why do you need this? And they'll say, well, because the bank needs it. And you keep on digging and say, well, that's interesting. So once you've got this, why do you need it? What are you going to do with it? Well, we want to extend the business. Okay, why? So you keep on digging, why? Why do you need to extend your business? Well, whatever. My son is in the business now. I want to leave him a good business to take over. Okay. So where I'm going with my thinking here is it's really important that you have a process for figuring out client objectives. Do not stop at the first reason, which is the intellectual reason. You've got to get down to the emotional reason. So you keep on asking why, and the more you dig and repeat pretty much the same question over and over, the deeper the client will go and ultimately give you the real heart reason for why I have to have this thing. And that is a big key. So you want to understand your client objectives, not just the first reason they give you because the bank needs it, but the much deeper reason. Then, third step, identify the milestones, the measurement metrics. So how will you and the client know if their objectives are met? And what can you put in place to track this? It's another thing you want to record. Step number 4, what value will the client get out of this project? Number 5, it's really important that you translate the value that the client's going to get into pound terms or euro or whatever your currency is, but you need to be able to write this with them on a piece of paper, and you have a money symbol in front of it. So you're going to apply for this bank loan at the bank. Ultimately, you're going to extend your business because of this hard reason. What's that worth to you? If you extend your business over the next 10 years, I think we'll probably add another 10 million pounds in sales. Fantastic. You write that figure down, 10 million pounds, or whatever their thing might be. You know, if the value is that their business will avoid a hefty tax bill, make sure that you get them to actually ultimately be able to say that number. Because also part of the process here is what I call the contrast principle. Contrast principle says something to the effect of that if I said to you, I don't know, I'll do a cash flow forecast for you for £100. Your first response might be, oh, wow, that's expensive. Why so much? Or I may say to you as my first attempt, I'm going to do a cash flow forecast for you for £1,000. Your reaction might be exactly the same. Oh, why is it so expensive? So it's really useful in value pricing, especially, to use the contrast principle, which means I first give you a large amount, and in contrasting with that large amount, the small amount that I'm going to charge you for this job suddenly looks much smaller. So instead of saying I'm going to charge you £1,000 for this job, and you go, oh, how much? First I'm going to say, well, you know, if we do this job for you, you're going to save £100,000. Or if we do this job for you, you build your business, you're going to make an extra £10 million. My price for this is only £1,000. Now suddenly, because it's contrasted, it looks much, much smaller. So a very important principle to keep in mind. Okay, next step there. So then we've gone through this document, we filled in all these answers. Very important, I take this to somebody else in the business, my buddy, a sense checker, someone to sign this off. Because if I have a hang up about asking what I'm worth, and there's just no ways, even if I've got all this information, I'm going to ask 25,000 euros for this job as opposed to 10,000, you know, I'm just not ever going to do that. That's why it's so important that I go to a buddy in the business or somebody else who can check this for me and say, no ways, you should be charging way more for that based on all the information you've got here. So this is a really important part, essential. So there are the 6 steps in a nutshell. So who currently uses a process like this or something like this to calculate value pricing? Let's see if that is, you know, if you've got something like that in that way. Okay, good. So we've got a few. No, not me. Good. So, you know, very simple, straightforward process. Good. Okay, so I tried to, but others don't. Ravi, yeah. Okay, I get that. So again, you know, back to the story with Colin. So I shared with him my six-step value pricing calculator. And you know, it's a very simple, straightforward process that I created to help my clients calculate value pricing. And again, what I was saying earlier about the 80-20 rule, and then again 80-20ing the 20%. You know, what I shared with you there wasn't rocket science, but it's so damn simple and it works. So, you know, with Colin, I sat down and we ran through each step one by one until we got to this final amount. And, you know, we got to a figure of, instead of these 10,000 euros, was 25,000 euros. Actually a bit more, but hey. So initially Colin was a bit unsure because he thought, you know, an additional 15,000 euros over what he's already got would scare this prospect client off. And I pushed, you know, this is where I had my coaching hat on. I said to him, Colin, give it a go. You know, worst case scenario, you can come back to 10,000, but start higher. And about a week later, I got a text from him saying, yep, prospect agreed, 25K, thanks Rudy. So literally, stuff works. Okay. What would you say have been your biggest takeaways from that section? What have you learned? What have you noticed? What would you like to share? So just go into your chat box there. What is your biggest takeaways from that section there? I think personally, whilst you're busy typing that in there, one of my biggest takeaways as I put this whole process together was how important it is to be absolutely focused on the high impact stuff that actually makes a difference. You know, when you 80-20 and 80-20 again, and you get to the diamonds and you implement the diamonds, it makes a world of difference. Neville says, pricing is another area where I need to implement a system. Absolutely, Neville. At the end of the day, jumping into the BO quadrant, you want everything systemized around you. And that's how you can make the jump into the I quadrant. And he says, don't just have a price list, consider the worth of the same service to different clients. Absolutely, Andy. And from experience with our clients, we found that price list or, pricing software is good up to roughly about, and this is roughly, £3,000. So if the quote's going to be up to about £3,000, then silver, bronze, gold type stuff is okay, or software is okay, or even price lists. When we start going beyond the £3,000 bracket, that's when we really start kicking into value pricing. Okay, Chris says to have a system in place for pricing one-off jobs. Paul, do not underestimate the value of the client prospects. And Liam, yeah, have a pricing system. Absolutely, fantastic. Good. Okay, so I'm interested in you. In relation to the shift, the higher level from hoping for growth to predictable growth. For a lot of us, we're in this hope phase, doing what we're doing. Hope to predictable, where are you now? And really the big question is, what's the long-term result if you stay there? So just go ahead, type in with me, are you closer to the hope stage or closer to the predictable stage at this point in the game? Type in hope or predictable, where are you closer to? Okay, good. Hope, yeah. Okay, totally get that. So, hope and hard work. Yep, that's called a treadmill, Ravi. Okay, so when you switch to predictable growth, when you do that, everything gets easier. And that's what I want for you. My job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. And looking at the time here, I'm talking way too much. I need to move my backside here. So right now, you've got a choice to make. You can keep hoping for growth, being stressed out with loads to do, always wanting one more client, or you can make a decision, draw a line in the sand and say, I need to make our growth predictable. So what's going to be? I'm going to give you 5 seconds right now. Make a choice. I don't care what you choose. It's your practice, your business, not mine. Now, obviously, I think that predictable growth is going to get you the results that you want, but I need you to make that choice. And as I said, my job today is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions. And this is the first decision. Are you going to keep hoping, or are you going to make it predictable? Paul, I like your shorthand. PG. Good. Get to the point. Yep. Liam, predictable growth, predictable. Move to predictable. Good. Okay. Great. And, when you get this stuff right, that's how you get an A+ team. You calculate the right value price and wow your new clients in the first 90 days. So, like I said, looking at the clock here, I've got to move it now, so I'm going to zip through the rest. And we will get to the Q&A. If there are questions, ask it then, or organize a call with me, and I'll answer your specific questions specifically in a call with you, one-on-one. Okay, so the next shift, moving from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. Now again, there's some really good stuff here where I can just talk forever, but let me not do that. So from overline to self-reliant team, again, in our process where we've 80-20, we said, hey, there are 4 keys. You implement these 4 keys, and you can put a tick next to every one of these things. You will get yourself off the treadmill. So here we've got key number 1, which is all about staffing. We're looking at a profitable model, because for me, your net profit before partners packages, the range that I have for my clients is somewhere between 20 and 40%. If you're doing 20% or less, there's something obviously wrong, and we'll have low-hanging fruit to pick up. If you're at 40% plus, you're on the right track. If you're at, there's a few people at 50%, that's fantastic, and there's a few superstars at 60% plus. But I'd want to see you move towards the 40% plus at the very least. And that's what I talk about, a profitable model, and how do you put it all together to get there. How do we recruit A+ players? Navigate outsourcing. Key number 2, staff management. Maximize management, team meeting rhythm, and delegate effectively, which is actually pretty simple to do once you know how to do. Okay, key number 3, time management. Driving your diary, eliminate tasks, and work less. Again, fairly simple when you know how to do it. Key number 4, productivity, so terminate distractions, filtering emails, which can be a huge suck of energy, and increasing focus. So we're going to look at A+ players today. So imagine that you, or your practice as an Olympic athlete, okay? So we're spending years training what we do, we're perfecting our skills, and we're gaining experience. And yes, of course, natural ability will help you get so far, but without the daily support from a whole team around you, the coaches, the physios, the backroom staff, the chance of winning this Olympic gold is going to very quickly diminish compared to other athletes. So what does that mean for you? If you're aiming for Olympic gold in your practice, which I really hope you are doing, then you really do need a team of A+ players behind you. A team of people who are there for you on a daily basis, supporting you, driving you forwards towards your goal, the right people. Now, if you're happy to settle for bronze or silver or no medals at all, that's fine. It's okay to have a B or a C team. Just recognize that you're not ever going to get to Olympic gold or off this treadmill and to freedom. And that's a choice too. But if you want to get to Olympic gold, you absolutely need a team of A+ players behind you. So, yeah, actually, let's ask this question. So, if you're on this call today and you are actually aiming for Olympic gold, and by Olympic gold, I really mean you've built a business, a practice that has pretty much given you freedom. You've got lots of money, you've got lots of time, you have a fantastic life. And that's probably what my definition of Olympic gold. So let's see, who on this call is aiming for Olympic gold for your practice? If that's you, then go for a yes. If it's no, why not? Okay, obviously a lot of yeses coming in there. Good. Desmond says even silver would be good. Desmond, I refuse to settle for less. I want to get off this treadmill. Okay, good stuff. So if you don't have an A+ team in your practice, then a lot of stuff will always fall back onto your shoulders. You find yourself managing an even greater workload than what you should be managing, which is silly. And the result of all this is that you aren't winning this Olympic gold. No chance. So if you do have an A+ team, then your team take care of things for you. You'll find that your workload is dramatically reduced because you extract yourself from the day-to-day stuff. And all of which means you feel relaxed and focused as your team take care of things whilst you grow your practice. Or, quite frankly, spend your time on the beach, whatever you choose. It's about creating choice. So what could having an A+ team do for you and your practice? So yeah, seriously, if you had an A+ team around you, what would it do for you and for your practice? So go ahead and type that in there for us. If you had an A+ team around you, what would it do for you and your practice? Absolutely. Free me up to grow the practice even faster. Yeah. Freedom, increase client satisfaction, give me time to concentrate on attracting clients, more services. Absolutely, it would be transformational. Definitely. Having an A+ team is a massive, massive key, especially in that BO quadrant. Okay, so let's look at this formula that I created this probably, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, called the A+ formula. Pretty simple, straightforward, as everything that I do is. So the formula goes like this. Let me just move this one box away so I can actually see my full screen as well. Okay, so we have there the, there we go, A plus A equals A plus. That's the formula. So the first A stands for attitude. So that's the person's attitude towards really the work they're doing, but it could also be a general life attitude. Second A stands for ability. And what we do is that we rate people 0 to 10, 0 being shocking, 10 brilliant, and we average those two. And Rudy's rule of thumb is that if someone has less than an 8 as an average, then I have to ask myself, why is this person on my team? So let's take a look at a practical example here. And I'm going to try and run through this as quickly as possible because we've still got a lot to cover. So in my team, let's say I have these individuals. We've got Phil there. Phil is a pretty good bloke. For attitude, I'm going to give him 9. For ability in his current role, I'm going to give him a 9. So keep in mind, even if he was a trainee, I could still give him a 9 for ability in his current role. So Phil gets an average of 9. Hey, Phil, really glad to have you in our team. Fantastic. We've got Jenny in admin. Oh, what an amazing woman. Attitude 10, ability 10, average 10, keeper, whatever. Now we've got Jack there. Attitude is pretty good, 8. Ability, 6, I'd say. So give him an average of 7. Then there's Joe. Joe's attitude is 4, but he's really good at what he does. His ability is 9 and average 6.5. And we have Lucas, who has an attitude of 6, ability of 5, so 5.5 is an average. So for me, there are a few rules around attitude and ability, and I really hope you can hear me clearly now because this is really important. For ability, there's typically two things going on. Either it's a square peg in a round hole type of situation. In other words, I've got the right person in my organization, fantastic attitude, they're just in the wrong role. So I have to ask myself as a strong leader, and as a strong leader, it's about doing the right thing, not the comfortable thing. So as a strong leader, do I have another role for this individual in my organization that I can move them into? If I can, and it's a profitable move, fantastic, let's do that. If I don't, then I have to do the strong thing and move this person on. I haven't got space for them yet. It's just not a fit. We don't keep people in a world-class football team just because they're nice people. They actually have to be able to play the game, and there's got to be space for them in the team if we're going for Olympic gold. So square peg in the round hole is one situation under ability. The other situation often is a training issue. Now, training of my team sits on my shoulders as the leader. I've got to go sit down with them and figure out who needs what training and then put a plan together and make sure they get that training. So that's ability, those two things, is square peg, round hole, or training. Attitude, a bit different. Again, this is Rudy's take on life, but I believe that somebody is born with an attitude, and I don't know if I really want to pay you for the next 10 years whilst you might decide to change your attitude. That's the one thing. The other part of the attitude is that it's the whole scenario of one rotten apple in the cart is all it takes to ruin the entire cart. So for me, when it comes to people like Joe with a 4 attitude, it's a non-negotiable, and I will take Joe through a process to get him out the door. Now, Joe there, look at that score. Attitude 4, ability 9 is a classical mistake in hiring. I look at a CV, oh, fantastic CV, this person really can do the job, I bring them in, oh, look, they can do the job, but actually they've got a bloody crappy attitude, and it ruins the rest of the team. That doesn't work. It does not ever work. Do not kid yourself about this. It doesn't work. If you have somebody with a low attitude number, they do not fit. And again, that's my take on life, and I'm quite passionate about it. I've seen this too many times. Wrong attitude, it doesn't work. Doesn't matter what their ability is in the long run, because you will always come back and pick up the pieces. So then we've got Lucas there, low attitude number, again, bit non-negotiable, but in Lucas' case, he can't even do the job. This is the wrong place for him. Move him on. So this is a big key in recognizing very simple exercise, what you have. Then we've got a whole process around how you move people on and how you find other people, but that's another presentation on another day. But this is massive, massive key. First, you have to figure out what you've got in your team, who you've got. Because when you make these changes, you will be able to build yourself an A+ team. So let me just quickly have a look here, because I think Neville says there's a saying, hire on attitude and train the technical. Seems to support this. I would want to hire for attitude and technical, but second best is hire attitude and train technical. Absolutely yes. So the question here is, who currently has an A+ team in place? Where everybody is an 8 or above. So let's just go either a yes or a no in that one, because you already have an A+ team in place. Fantastic. And if not yet, well, at least now you know. And settling for second best is a choice that you make, because there's always a ways and means. Okay, so we've got quite a few here and some definites. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so here, this client of mine, or past client, and actually Paul, he's one of those people who's made this jump into the investor quadrant. Fantastic. And as you can see, since putting an A+ team in place for my practice, and it was hard graft. I mean, when I started with Paul, I think he had about 40 people on his team. So it was quite a shift from how things were done before. I only work 3 days a week in the office. Well, it's probably more because Paul is a bit of a workaholic between you and me. But hey, that's him. And spend 2 months every summer on my yacht with my family, which he does. What a fantastic place to be in. But he now has an absolutely A+ team behind him. I know he acquires other businesses and practices. Oops, sorry, I've got the wrong screen here. There's the picture of Paul. Okay, so what a fantastic place to be in. It's in that I quadrant, and the man is playing Monopoly. What a great place to be in. So, what was your biggest takeaways in this section? What did you learn? What did you notice? What do you want to share? So go ahead, type that in there. Your biggest takeaways in this section. It's interesting for me also, even though I teach stuff, I mean, a few months ago, I was in need of a new VA, virtual assistant. I found a lady who had fantastic ability. She had a 10 out of 10 for ability, but her technical, she had a phobia for computers. And since she was based in the Philippines, where she would need a computer all the time, it just didn't work. And I was forced to move her on, despite her being a fantastic human being. Okay, so we got here, good. David says A plus A equals A plus chart, and really simple stuff this. Level, quality of team is a keystone to everything. Very important. Andy, reiterates what we've learned by trial and error over 20 years, which I could share with you in 2 minutes. Absolutely, Andy, fantastic. Chris, importance of identifying poor attitude and moving them on. Massive, massive key. I remember a client of mine once had a manager who'd been with him for 17 years. Went through this process and realized it's not a fit. This guy had sleepless nights about moving this person on, but he did it. There's a process we have for that as well. We call it the firing fast method. But he did that. He stuck to his guns and he moved the person on. But the following year, his profits increased dramatically. Okay, so again, I'm interested in you. Where are you at and what's the long-term result if you stay there? For me, because when you switch from this, over-reliant to self-reliant, and that is, again, what I want for you. So again, right now, I want you to make a choice. You can keep having an overly dependent team, always working in the practice and forever playing catch-up, or you can make a decision, draw a line in the sand and say, I need to make my team become self-reliant. So for those of you who haven't yet got an A-plus team, what's it going to be? And again, take 5 seconds right now, make a choice. And again, I don't care what you choose. It's your business, your life. It's your treadmill. Obviously, oh, that was a bit naughty, Rudy. Okay, obviously, I think the self-reliant team is going to get you the results that you want, but the choice is yours. Good, and I can see some of you already coming in there, typing it in. Great. And like I said, today my job is to help you make 3 or 4 really smart decisions, and this is the second one. So is your team going to be self-reliant or over-reliant? Good. Okay, got the answers coming in there. Andy, already at about 90% self-reliant. Excellent. There's another concept I call puppy training, which is when we've got the right people on board, we just got to keep on doing the puppy training until we get it right. Okay, so, and when we get the stuff right, again, that's how we get an A-plus team, calculate the right value price, and wow our new clients in the first 90 days. Good, so that section was a bit faster. I think we're a bit more on track now. Shift number 3 here. Going from sweat systems to scalable systems. Now, again, you'd probably be surprised to know we have 4 keys to this one. And again, if you can tick, not if, it's a when you've ticked all 4 keys, it's again, this is how I get off the treadmill. So key number 1, lockup. So what are our systems for decreasing debtors so it becomes negative? Working your WIP, and systemizing the whole lockup process there. Key number 2, customer service. How do we onboard effectively? How do you build your RCs and maximize satisfaction? Key number 3, KPIs. Big, massive key, this one. Measure efficiently. How do we direct accordingly and track frequently? And key number 4 here, the practice management and the technical stuff. So systemize frequently, paperless office, and leveraging the cloud. So today we're going to draw deep into how to onboard effectively, and more specifically look at your 90-day onboarding game plan, because we need a 90-day onboarding game plan here. Okay, so we all know, this is not new. Times are changing. Our profession is becoming much more competitive. The introduction of cloud accounting and all of those things. We all know about the large firms introducing bookkeeping packages for smaller businesses. And so you are left to compete the only way that you can, which is hopefully not on pricing, but by building more intimate and meaningful relationships with your clients, which is actually pretty simple to do in a systemized way. So one of the ways we do this with our black belt clients is by, well, also introducing advisory service into the practice. But another way which can get much quicker results is by building an onboarding process that wows new clients in the first 30 to 90 days, which instantly strengthens the relationship with them, which means there's more word of mouth and more cross-selling opportunities as well. So what kind of wow onboarding process do you have in place in your practice or your firm right now? So go ahead and type that into the chat box for us there. Let's see what kind of wow process system do we already have in place. So as you're busy typing that in, that's something, actually, what I'm going to touch on with you today is a process that I did with my black belt clients, probably about 6 months ago. We all got into a meeting room on the day, and I took them through a process where we drew a timeline of the next 90 days, and they literally for every week, for all the different grades of clients, figured out their onboarding process. So, okay, nothing systemized. Have a functional onboarding process. Not sure about the wow factor. None. What do you mean by onboarding? Okay, David, good question. By onboarding, I mean if I become a new client of yours, today is day 1, and we've just met and I've signed the contract, what happens over the next 90 days as you onboard me into your practice to wow me, and that I go to my mates in the pub and go, blimmin' heck, you've got to come to this accountant because he's amazing. So that's the onboarding process in the first 90 days I'm talking about here. If it's just well, we signed the contract and there's maybe a call, that's not it's not a wow process. It is an onboarding process. Okay, no process in place, specific newsletters, phone calls, good stuff. Okay, so not too much going on there, which again, it's a gap for you. You know, the good news there is it's a gap that you can go full fairly easily and it'll make a big difference. Okay, so if we don't have a proper onboarding, systemized onboarding wow process in place, risk is that client info isn't collected properly and timely when they sign up. Now that image on your screen might be a bit extreme. I do appreciate that, but you know, we're completely disorganized and working chaos. And this one here, new clients are left yawning. So they're not so impressed with what they've seen. You know, yes, they've just joined a new accountant. There is this honeymoon phase, but you know what, it is what it is. And if we do that, we're missing out huge opportunities. And then if you get this right, you'll have an organized system for collecting info from new clients. Your new clients will be impressed and more open to upsells and cross-sells and even giving you referrals. And I've heard numerous great accountants, you know, people who've been winning all kinds of awards, say to me that the first, you know, when a client is just signed on, is the time where they are most likely to give you referrals. So why not just systemize and do as much as we can in this space? And, you know, this leaves clients wowing at your practice. And most accountancy practices are the same. So why not make yours different by creating an onboarding experience which wows them? So there's a question. What could a systemized wow onboarding process do for your practice or for you? So go ahead and type that in there. If we did have a systemized wow onboarding process in our practice today, what might it do for us? Okay. Help keeping clients, absolutely. Increasing referrals. Team know what they're doing and speed up the process, Ravi, in a massive way, like you won't believe. And he says help with predictable growth. Definitely, and it's another tick we put in the box to say, yes, got this systemized, it's in place, it's done. I don't have to think about it anymore, it's there. Good. Saves time, happy clients, referrals. Okay, so bottom line is it's a good thing. So let me share with you the onboarding matrix, because again, you know, really all you could do with your team is sit your team members down and say, let's figure this out for the first 90 days. Let's draw a line here and let's bring in steps and systemize this. How do we wow our clients? It's fairly simple and straightforward on the face of it. But hey, onboarding matrix, 4 quadrants. So if you do things ad hoc and they're boring, then you've got what I call a graveyard. Okay, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, so bear with me here. So this doesn't necessarily mean you'll lose clients. It just means you won't maximize your chances of asking for referrals or cross-selling them. If you do things ad hoc and they are exciting, we call this stutter. So things happen occasionally, but nothing happens consistently. And consistency, written in big capital letters, is a big, massive key to you you getting off your treadmill and gaining freedom. Oops, okay, gone a bit fast there, but hey, if you have got a streamlined process that's boring, then your clients are going to be yawning. So the system might exist, but does it truly give the greatest wow factor to the client? And then if you've got a streamlined and exciting process, then you are wowing your clients. So which one of those 4 segments do you think that you guys are spending most of your time in at the moment? Looking at those 4 there, where would you say which of those words most applies to you at the moment? Okay, so David says how to get from graveyard to wow. Andy Stutter. Neville says wow. Hey, fantastic, Neville. Brilliant. Chris, graveyard, Ravi, Stutter, at moment yawn. Yeah, it is. And again, it is what it is. It's recognizing, okay, this is where we are. How do we change that? Good stuff. Okay, so how do you make an onboarding process that wows your clients? Meaning there's more cross-selling, more referrals, and increased client retention. So step 1, you draw out a 90-day timeline. With your, do this with your team members. Get them in a room, draw out a 90-day timeline. I'm going to give you 5 steps here, okay? It's not going to be on the screen, so listen carefully, write this down. Step 1, draw out a 90-day timeline. Step number 2, plot on that timeline all of the necessary tasks, the things that we have to do. So we've got to collect the records, update internal records, set up direct debit, whatever it might be, okay? So those are the necessary steps. Step number 3, on that same timeline, maybe on the other side of the line, add the wow factor extras. So just some examples, but again, this is up to your own creativity. Send them a welcome box with some useful info or any good literature, maybe a book to read, Michael Gerber's E-Myth or whatever it might be, maybe some vouchers to cinema, whatever. Maybe have a member of your team do like an onboarding call, so explaining in much more detail everything that they need to know about the way your practice works and where to go if they need help. Depending on where you're at, maybe a dedicated client manager, do a face-to-face with them. Maybe have a 30-day check-in call with them. Now, again, depending on the grade of the client, if they're an A+ client or a C client, but after 30 days, call the client personally just to check in and make sure everything is okay, or quite frankly, take them for lunch if they're an A+ client, and they'll be blown away. I promise you by that. I promise you that. Step number 4, then we convert that timeline into a checklist. And step number 5, very important, pick a champion, somebody in your team to be responsible for this. Maybe an admin staff member who generates a new checklist with each new client and ensures it's completed on time. So those are 5 pretty simple, straightforward steps that really can change the way that you operate and therefore systemize the wow elements. Very simple. So again, one of our clients here, Naz, he came to me and said, KPMG are starting to sweep up some of our local clients. And what NASM did is they put the onboarding process and a few other things as well in place, but it helped them to build systemized, meaningful relationships with both their new and current clients really fast, and made such a massive difference because all in that relationship. So in this section, I know I covered it pretty fast, but what would you say biggest takeaways? What have you learned, noticed, shared, or have to share in that section? What was your biggest takeaway there? So go ahead, type it in there for us. What was your biggest takeaway in that section? So whilst I'm waiting for you to type, I'm thinking that the biggest takeaway could be how easy this stuff is. Get the 90-day timeline and keep doing what we are, but open to more add-ons, have an onboarding system. Yeah. Ravi says, we've created lots of this type of thing, but have not had time to implement. Ravi, when it comes to implementation, that is one of the things that I am a master at in helping my clients with, because time is like gravity. You're constantly fighting it, and unless there's a process and a system around how to take control of it, it's unlikely to happen by accident. So if you ever need help with that, let's talk. Chris says to have a process place, 90-day timeline. Andy, drawing together compliance stuff with our stuff as a system, definitely. Vera, 90-day timeline, but what afterwards? Vera, the what afterwards, there is a what afterwards, definitely. It's a whole customer service system we've got, but we're not covering that today. So, but again, Vera, if you need more info, organize a call with me afterwards, and I'll give you more info on that. Okay, good stuff. So, just aware of the time. I'm going to rush through the last few minutes here. So, I'm interested in you. This one, yeah. And again, where are you in this shift from sweat systems to scalable systems? And again, I want you to make a decision. And this is really key, about you making a decision. You drawing a line in the sand. Because until you make the decision, nothing is going to change ever. It has to come from you. You can sit here and I can tell you this stuff, but until it clicks in your head that I've had enough, it's time, it won't change. So for you, shifting from what the two, sweat systems to scalable systems, where are you aiming for? Is it your choice to stay in sweat, or is it your choice to move to scalable? And on the other side of scalable sits a world of freedom and choice in the investor quadrant. Good. Okay. Scalable's coming in there, so fantastic. And again, for me, if this is how we get an A+ team, calculate the right value price, and wow new clients in the first 90 days. Good, Andy. Absolutely. Okay, so let's have a quick recap here. I do believe it's a fact that you've been set up to fail. No one's deliberately trying to ruin our lives. And the fact is that the system you either bought into or the thinking you bought into when you learned to become an accountant and saw what everybody else is doing, it's flawed. Like Andy was saying earlier, it's taken him 20 years to figure out about the A+ formula. Yeah, you can spend good years of your life figuring this stuff out, or I could share it with you in minutes. But the model that we've got, it's not necessarily the best one. And again, this place where it limits us in 3 major areas, and those 3 strategic shifts, we said shift number 1 is going from hoping for growth to predictable growth. Number 2 is going from over-reliant team to self-reliant team. And the third one is going from sweat systems to scalable systems. So I'm going to skip this slide for today, but one last model I want to share with you today is, it's kind of linked to the whole employed, self-employed, business owner, investor, but just in a different way. There's a ladder for you growing your practice: startup, survival, stability, success, scale, and significance. And you do those in different times: spare time, part-time, full-time, overtime. And it's interesting that overtime is the one linked with success. Working my socks off, and I call it success. Then we have money, and finally freedom, which would be the investor quadrant. And for me, this is not an exact science by a long shot, but there's 2 cutting off points kind of at 150,000 and what I kind of call 500,000. Rough guides, and this is definitely not cast in stone. But for me, that first phase is what I call the hunt phase, then the build phase, and finally the flow phase. Now, for those of you who are at this section of the build or the flow phase, if you're below that, if you're in the hunt phase, then we've got lots of free things for you. There's a blog, there's presentations like this. I'm starting some seminars early next year as well, which are fairly free, but that's there for you. And if you're in the build or the flow phase, then I just want to spend a few more minutes explaining to you how I might be able to help you if that is what you want. And that's what I said up front, I'll explain to you all this stuff. There's a whole system to put in there if you're interested. So a few more minutes, I'll explain to you how that works. So if you wanted to take this further, the next step is really simple. And that would be for us to have a quick telephone conversation, literally somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. It's no pressure. It's a friendly interrogation because I'm asking you a lot of questions. And I'll ask you a lot of questions to find out if or how I can help you. And this session is going to go a bit like this. In those 15 minutes where I ask you a lot of questions, we can discover the number one thing that's stopping you from building the practice that you want and that hopefully will take you to investor choice and freedom. We'll also identify the next best step that will move you to the place you want to be. And I promise you that you will leave that session with the confidence of knowing exactly what to do in order to implement the practice growth blueprint. And like I said, at the end of those 15 minutes, either I can help you or I can't. And if I can't, I'll try and point you in the right direction. If I can help you, then we can book in another time to go into a bit more detail about how I could help you. And the next step, so, if you are interested in this next step, go onto that website there, you fill in a quick questionnaire, and that helps me understand where you're at so that I can prepare better for our 15 minutes on the phone, and that becomes much more effective. Good, and that's pretty much it. So that takes us to the Q&A. And for those of you who need to be off now, we've managed just in time here with 90 minutes, 91 minutes. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And for those of you who have any questions, now is a great time to ask. And it can be any questions, whether it be on anything we covered today or any one of the other corners or any questions you have on building your practice. Feel free to throw those in there. And again, for those of you who want some one-on-one help, there is the sites. Go in there, book yourself a session. We'll spend 15 minutes together, and I'll help you get clarity on that as well. Okay, Andy, I will do that. Good stuff. Okay, we've got a question from Mandy on what are the best marketing methods to implement. So Mandy, that's a good question, a pretty wide question. And actually it's one that's in the book that I mentioned before that I've just written that's available on Amazon now, The Highly Profitable Accountant. It's a section that I cover in there where I break it down step by step in a simplified manner for us accountants to actually understand marketing. And the way I explain it is that if you look at a spider's web, in the center of the spider's web, we have a bit of spinning, and we need to get that center right first. Once we're happy with that first level of the web, then we can go out and spin the rest of the web. So the level 1 of the spider web, that is where we go and we systemize a lot of the things we're currently doing already. Now that might be, is my website what I call good enough? Because there's a lot of websites that are looking like they were made in the 1930s. They really just don't do the trick anymore, and they actually leave or they create a bad message for people who look at your, they've just found out about you, they go to your website and they go, I have definitely seen better websites. So, and again, that's part of the training we give our clients. What are the elements that need to be part of your website, and what do they? I'm not a graphic designer, but I can tell you the elements and the keys that need to be there. So website is one of them. Things like, do we ask for referrals? Now, is that an ad hoc process or is it a systemized process in the practice? So again, it's going back to the basics we're already doing or already have in place and just improving it or systemizing it. Things like your LinkedIn profile. Yes, please, you should have a LinkedIn profile, and there should be certain elements in there to have it good enough. Because again, we don't want somebody to come and look at your LinkedIn profile and go, oh, I'm not so sure about this. There's about 5 or 6 different things that should be in this core. Now I'm trying to think what they are. But essentially, the core is all about take the stuff that you're already doing and ensure that it is good enough and systemized. Once you've got that place, we go on to the next phase of marketing, that level 2, the next part of the web. And there we are looking at, well, I guess we could summarize all of that in one single word, and that one single word would be content. In other words, when somebody is 2 o'clock in the morning, had enough of their accountant and they're Googling new accountants in the area, it is content they're looking for. I mean, purely as an example, but you're on this on this webinar, this online training, because the content, you're looking for knowledge, you're looking for answers. And this is an example of content. Now, content could be webinars, it could be blog posts, it could be seminars, LinkedIn status updates, things like that would be content. Now, again, part of what you'll find in that book as well that I cover is what does your marketing team look like? Because most people, they say to me, oh no, really, that's just more overheads. I couldn't possibly afford that. But there are ways to do it full-time if you really have to, full-time staff marketing-wise. But for most people, they do it on a part-time basis or even outsourced. Some of those team members could be in the Philippines or India, quite frankly. But on your marketing team, you need a marketing manager, so somebody who's going to coordinate the whole process. Then who else do we need? We need a website person. We need a copywriter who can write some copy for you. We need a graphic designer who can make it look pretty for you. If you're going to get into videoing, we need a video editor for you. So, we might need a telemarketer, telesalesperson for you. So there's a whole range of people that you need in this team. And like I say, you probably don't want to start off with them being full-time at all because that's a big budget. But there's no reason for some or all of them to be part-time or even outsourced. And when you put that in place, things start happening again in a systemized way without you. And that's the second level of marketing. So it's important that you get the first center of the cobweb spun properly. Once we're happy that that is solid, then you can go into the second level, which is all about content and the different ways of doing that. And again, there's a whole process around that, which your marketing manager, your marketing team is going to put in place for you, because I'm guessing you haven't really got the time for that. You shouldn't have the time for that. But then getting marketing systemized, there's your web will be spun. Because if your marketing web at the moment is kind of hanging in tatters in the wind, it's not doing you any favors. If it's a systemized process, a strong web that has been spun, it'll work and it'll get you results. Good. Okay, so that seems to be the only question coming through. Again, go onto that website, book yourself a session with me. It's free. There's no obligation. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I won't. And let's see if I can help you. Good stuff. Have yourselves a great day and a great rest of the week. All right then. Bye for now. All right, Neville. No problem.